Hey guys, welcome to our first ever episode of the Indie Spotlight. It's a new show we're starting where we take a look at indie creators and projects in the indie comics community. Today we're joined by Ouroboros Moon. Do you prefer to go by your Twitter handle?
Yeah, that's fine.
Ouroboros is the creator of the comic Wicked, which is currently on Indiegogo. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I actually really wanted to be on.
Nice. We appreciate that. For those of you who aren't familiar, my name is Michael, and I'm one of the co-founders. And I'm
I'm
joined by.
Matt.
Mhm.
Matt Bryant. Matt Bryant, the other co-founder for Wicked as well. Wicked Publishing, we should say, since we are with the creator of the Wicked comic.
Nah,
Both
look
Good
how
point.
titles are
Good point.
spelled
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
differently,
Good,
look
though.
how
good.
that
Yeah,
goes.
Both of them are spelled
that's.
differently, so nobody has
But
to
that
worry
how
about that.
how I feel like it's the meaning of the
Uh,
Wickeds, right?
Yeah.
The
in a
Wickeds have
sense,
met
yeah.
to talk, and we're here to talk about your project. So first things first, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your comic?
Uh, Quite frankly, I don't like talking about myself,
No worries. Why don't you just jump straight into your comic then?
but I'll let you know that my occupation's in cybersecurity
Hmm.
and video game design.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I
That sounds
specialize
pretty
in
interesting.
programming.
Wow. How long have you been doing that for?
Oh, very nice.
Uh,
Like for scripting and everything, correct?
yeah, I also work in narrative design.
Geez, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Once you learn to make
A
games, it
lot of math with
doesn't
that.
really become fun playing them.
Hmm. Yeah, that's I can see that. Usually, that's how it goes with work. That's the risk of mixing business with pleasure, I suppose.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, if you create something, you could just set it down for about 2 years and come back to
Hmm.
it. And by that time, it'll probably be fun for you because you're like, oh, yeah.
You get a little nostalgia going with it.
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
I've also worked in some eerie places. Believe it or not, I used to work at Manga Gamer, not Manga Gamer. Yeah, Manga Gamer.
I'm not familiar with Manga Gamer.
Huh.
I wouldn't look it up.
Yeah, I
It's
don't think I
basically
have
porn.
either.
They work on like H-type games in Japan.
H type, you said?
Yeah, hentai.
Ah, that's funny.
Ah, okay. Probably the reason why neither of us are
Right,
familiar.
probably true.
But hey, that's fine.
Yeah, but I also worked on traditional Japanese
Really?
games as well.
Wow.
Ooh.
So you have a kind of a wide breadth of experience, it sounds like.
Yeah, I also worked in editorial.
Hmm.
A lot of creativity for all those different types of jobs you've done. That's very nice.
I wanted to stay in entertainment. Originally, when I was in high school, I actually wanted to make movies.
Well,
But
really?
then I knew that was going to work out because I was antisocial.
I'm sure a lot of people can
Yeah,
relate to that.
that can cause a few problems.
But
Uh,
I wanted to ask you coming from this these kind of gaming background, what made you want to create a comic?
Creating a comic is something I always wanted to do, but I never got around to it due to the very fact that I thought it'd be financially taxing.
Do we
In
still have you
addition
there?
to the idea or the perspective that I was afraid of failure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I just realized I accidentally muted myself.
You did?
Yeah, my bad. I muted my audio. Sorry, would you mind repeating the last thing you said?
Oh, so I wanted to create a comic for a while, but I was always afraid of one, failure, two, not living up to the expectation that I could, and three, perspective. Because I haven't said this before in other live streams that I did, but I have written a story and it kind of did have like a small niche following, but I
Hmm.
just ended up removing it because I didn't like the discussions people were initially having about the story that I wrote.
Really?
And people were arguing at me about the story shouldn't have folded out like this. I can't believe you fucking killed the main character. Things like that.
That is pretty controversial. That is pretty controversial, I
Right.
will say. A lot
When
of people
people
don't
get
like that.
yeah, when you get attached to a character, some people get very defensive of that stuff, I guess.
But I technically didn't kill him. He became a omniscient. Uh, what would be the word for it? It's like Jean Grey from the X-Men. I want to say
Like an
psychokinesis.
avatar or something?
No, psychokinetic.
Hmm.
That was actually the title of the story. The character basically dies, but he's able to spread his conscious psychically from person to person. So the narrative of the story was going into the direction of the main character has died, and he was this vast psychokinetic user, very much like Legion. But in the process of dying, he was able to spread his consciousness over the world. And the story was basically turning into there was these individual characters in the narrative, or well, the narrator, which became the main character. And we would see these characters that had these individual goals, and him influence them as the narrator. So it was kind of a weird meta-contextual thing I was doing. And I guess people really didn't like that, so they got really mad. So I just removed the entire story from the internet.
Wow. But do you still have it?
If I could write it again, I definitely would make changes.
That's funny.
But I remember the story, like, clearly what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was a teenager, so I really had no clue what I was doing.
Really? So what made you end up writing Wicked?
In truth, Wicked is just a massive amalgamation of ideas I randomly just sporadically had. For example, I would work on game projects, and of course, they would get to prototype stage, or they would just flat out fall through, and basically it would just get scrapped. So I was like, I have all these individual stories. I'll take a piece of or element or an idea from that story or each of them and shove it into one universe. That's basically where the concept of Wicked came in. And it basically spawned its own like little universe in my head of how things would play out.
That's pretty cool.
A common thing that appears in my writing is that you'll constantly see the same characters over and over again. It's like, well, there was this version of this character named Ender, for example, in Wicked, but then in a completely another story that I write, he'll appear again. It's like another iteration of that character. I just recycle them. I don't throw them away.
You like to come back to the characters and time again, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. And speaking of your characters and your the comic itself, what kind of a characters can we expect from this story in Wicked?
Last time I was on a live stream was I think 2 days ago, and basically I revealed that I completely, to some capacity, dislike the notion of superheroes. However, I found the idea of villains extremely interesting due to the very fact that villains are the people that ultimately push the superhero forward and thus progress the plot. So in the story, there's rather complex characters with very complex motivations, but still remain human. When it comes to something like Daredevil, I like Daredevil due to the very fact that his conflict with Kingpin and basically the Netflix TV show was just godly. The conflict with there somewhat very relatable, and I really like that. Versus a hero like, who can I give an example of? I wouldn't say Peter Parker. I wouldn't say, well, I would say he does good things for good reasons because it's good and it must be done. And that's his entire notion of having this power, and it's his responsibility to do so and do something with that power. But I wanted to have characters that had a dynamic of, well, you have superpowers. What's the first thing you're actually going to do? For example, one of my characters has the ability, let's just say it's time and space manipulation. First thing he does is commit a crime. First time, something human. It's not that I get powers right away and I'm just going to beat up bad people because that's my mission. Of course, you're going to try to prioritize yourself first and figure out what you're going to do with your powers next.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Sounds very human.
Yeah.
Like what most people would do.
Right.
If you were to watch kind of
right.
like the CW TV shows, if you watch the first episode of The Flash, he's all like, well, I got my powers. I'm going to stop bank robbers now. It's not I'm gonna run into a bank and steal all the money and go buy a limo or a yacht or finally pay back my student loans.
It's almost like once you get the powers, you don't just become a hero. You want to play out those fantasies first. Almost that'd be like
Yeah.
initial instinct, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from with that.
Experimentation a little bit, have a little bit of fun. You know, get yourself a little bit prepared for just in case of anything. Like, let's say the powers are temporary. Get yourself a bunch of money real quick, or some to help you out later on, just in case it goes away.
So in the Indiegogo page, which we'll go ahead and show off in just a little bit, it says that it's a pitch black superhero fantasy full of sci-fi sensibilities and mysteries. So, given that kind of a description, what kind of a world does the comic take place in?
Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about setting. I was talking about the setting last time I was on live stream, and it was kind of difficult for me because I was almost treading on spoilers every single time when I continuously was talking about it. And the guy was like, "Doesn't this sound like kind of a spoiler?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it kind of is." But Wicked takes place in a universe where a magical fantasy universe that could be equivalent to Game of Thrones, but with the full shebang of magical elements like dragons, imps, demons, etc., etc. Basically, that fantasy universe died, and for whatever particular reason that I do explain within the first story arc, it merged with our universe, and basically, the story takes place in the first 100 days when this happens, and over 15 million people have died, and people are coming back from the dead. So you have a character. We're going to talk about the time space manipulating character that's named Sunny. It's him coming to the realization that, well, he has these powers that manipulate time and space. Maybe he can use it to actually help people than actually benefit himself, because his character is also antisocial as well. Because for me personally, I just put a piece of myself into the characters in the sense that both me and this character are both antisocial, don't really talk a lot, but as the story initially progresses, the story starts, but when you're reading it, you have that feeling that there was something else before, because this isn't the actual start of the story. We're just thrown into the middle of it, and the reader is slowly going to come to the realization of what's going on in this particular moment and why it's important in the history of the world. But that's basically the setting.
Really
We
cool, I have
have
to say, honestly.
monsters. It's basically monsters, demons, people, and all these people coming back from the dead and being teleported to our Earth. And as a result of the fantasy universe dying and merging with our universe, the Earth's become 75% bigger, so it can accommodate basically the new inhabitants that are going to reach there. And it's this slow build, and the world's going to slowly transition into something else. I'm not going to say what it is, but Wicked was originally supposed to be a video game that was named something completely different that I definitely can't talk about because of NDA. But the point is, the story's slowly going to transform, and the world's not going to be the same. You can look out the window right now, and if you live in an urban area or a city, you can see, well, it's fairly normal. But over time, it's slowly going to change throughout the duration of the story. But another plot element that I also have going on in the story is that people from the fantasy world have actually been coming to our world in secret, or people from our world are going to the fantasy world. But very few people know how to do this because, of course, if you knew how to do this, you would bail out on this reality and maybe go live in the magic land. But another idea and concept that I play with is due to the very fact that this primarily started to boom and explode during 1908. And we know things that happened in 1908 are World War I, World War II, Cold War, Vietnam. Ultimately, we're going to discover in the story, history was altered, or you could say, in the sense that in this reality where Wicked takes place, originally it was going into a steampunk-esque type worlds in society. However, someone from the fantasy magic world came to our reality and they brought electrical engineering. And basically the world swapped from steampunk type vibe into something like our society. That's just an example of one of the ramifications from someone from the fantasy world coming into our reality. Um, I know this sounds like very lore meat heavy, and it kind of is, because you can see that video game s kind of development of the story, but I don't drop all this information extremely on the reader. The first couple of arcs in the story are primarily about the characters and who they are, and we're slowly going to discover about the world. And I don't know what else to say because you're not saying anything, so it's kind of weird.
That's funny. No, that's really interesting. It sounds like you really spent a lot of time developing your world building of this story.
Yeah, I really
I
did.
think that's really awesome because I think that I think when readers see that, you know, they can tell, and that's what makes them invested in kind of projects like these.
Hmm.
Now, I wanted to take a look at the campaign itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and screen share real quick and pull that up. There we go. All right, so we're looking at the campaign now. So you can see here we have a video introduction. We have the goal. We have 47% with 10 days left to go, and
Oh
of course
yeah,
the goal.
I need
Nice,
two
nice.
more backers, and you get another free comic.
Really?
If you if you support the $5 ultimate unacquainted things, you get another comic code Under the Flesh. I want to say you get the first 4 chapters of that, so that rounds out to like what, 80 pages, I would like to say.
Nice, nice. That's cool. And now is that a
Yeah, it's quite a steal for $5.
is that a digital tier by any chance?
Yeah, it's also a digital
A
tier.
digital. So we start off with a digital tier, and then we move up to the Wicked Digital PDF. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of these perks that you have?
The Trauma is a horror comic that my artist Joe initially draw some time ago, because he's also a video game developer too.
Oh, really?
See how that's connected? He worked on the Half-Life 2 mod, No More Room in Hell. He also worked on the artwork and the conceptual art for Contagion, I would like to say.
Oh, nice.
And now he just does art stuff on and off again. Bill writes Punchline. Bill Williams and Matt Weldon, I would like to say that's his last name, and I hope he's not watching this live stream so he can critique me on that. But after the first arc of Wicked, which is called Extinction is the Rule, which is about 9 parts, but I began writing the story, and maybe that's going to be a little bit more time for me writing that. But after the Extinction is the Rule arc, which is this X-Men style arc of, well, the other people are coming from the other side and they don't belong over here, and they have powers and magic, and the world's popping off and cities are falling out the sky. The grass is green. I mean, the grass is purple, and it's all their fault.
Jeez.
It's basically that kind of arc. And you have a William Stryker-esque character, and his name is Amadeus Quinn in my particular case. And he has this plan where he's just going to kill off the inhabitants of all the people that came from the other side to our world. But the difference is he really knows how to do it, but he tells the entire world that he's going to do it. But the ultimate question becomes, if you had this kind of technology and the know how to do so, why haven't you already done it? And that pretty much sets off the events of the first arc, but that's not even the biggest spoiler of issue 1. So I'm still in the clear for not spoiling any information. So after I'd done that arc, I hopefully plan to do a crossover with Punchline, and that story arc would have been called The End of Forever. And yeah, that's basically the plan right now. I have about 100 issues planned out in my mind, or more, because at number 100, I would actually reveal the origin of the entire universe for Wicked and how everything came to be. But yeah, that's my plan currently right now.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like you got it all. Got a lot of really cool stuff planned out for this series.
Yeah, I do. Oh yeah, so there's another comic that you get with the Omega bundle. It's called Helgorithm. Helgorithm, let's just say it takes place in its own separate universe right now. Helgorithm is a story. Basically, have you heard about that game Cyberpunk 2077?
Which one?
Cyberpunk
Yeah.
2077. Basically, imagine that world. And a corporation discovered that, hey, we can unlock transhumanism and we're going to modify our bodies with cybernetics and all these other powers. But there's a Black Mirror-esque, if you ever seen that TV show on Netflix, there's a Black Mirror-esque twist to it. And immediately when people have access to this technology that allows them to be, let's just say, different biologically, people of course use it for their own benefits like assassination. Some people are just crazy, some people are just have this sick perversion, and it's basically about this group called the Helgorithm that go around killing people that have gone awry with their cybernetic enhancements.
Sounds interesting.
So
yeah.
that's what's going on in that comic. It's an anthology. And what else is in there? Under the Flesh, which is unlocked at 25 backers. It's written by, oh boy, I hope he's not watching this. It's written by Gil, the person that's doing Pistolosa. And Under the Flesh is a story about what if the zombie apocalypse happened and if it only affected men. That's basically the entire story of that. There's nothing very complicated. But that's pretty much everything that's bundled.
Nice. Well, I really love the art
Sounds pretty
that you
interesting.
guys have for the story. It looks really, really cool. We're seeing some examples here of the art.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like
go
ahead.
I was going to reveal some art later
nice.
on throughout the week, but I'm waiting for Kanan White to actually finish it. So I'm not going to. I hope he's not worried in this because I think I butchered his name.
I think I'm familiar with him. Is he on Instagram by any chance?
He draws the Brand comic.
The which one?
Brand.
Really? I feel like the name sounds so familiar. I feel like maybe I've seen him before online somewhere. Because some of his work.
It's done by I'm gonna butcher this name too, Antonio something.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to double check about that.
Look it up. It's Antonio Bryce.
But I love the detailed art. It's really, really expressive. So I definitely see why it is a good fit.
And after that, that should be it. But with the recent developments of the Indiegogo, ultimately what I'm gonna most likely do, if it's okay with everyone that gave me their money, hopefully if I can amass all the money, what I'm gonna do is completely throw away the one shots and I'm gonna write the main story. However, due to the very fact that my writing style is very Christopher Priest-esque, in the sense that I'm not singularly focusing on one character this entire time, even though there is a primary character within the story. Due to the very fact that the story is interconnected, I'm just going to tell each chapter or issue as somewhat of an anthology. So in for example, for issue 1, we meet this arms dealer and she has this entire thing going on. That would be one chapter. Then another chapter, we could have Sunny doing something completely else. And over time, if I just can't flat out write a serialized series that would pop out monthly with like 24 pages, you'll just discover what the hell's actually going on through the anthology, and it'll be built up through mystery. So it'd be an interconnected anthology, but it's still an ongoing story.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it kind of gives you a chance to do more individual stories, but still have that interconnected, ongoing story with ties to stuff that's happened.
Oh yeah, I was planning to also sell one more of the art. I was going to sell it for $150. It's done by Ari, the person that drew that $120 one.
Oh, nice.
I was going to sell this one for $150, but I'm still waiting for Kanan to finish up his, so then I could post it.
We're very familiar with Ori. He's actually working on our cover commission for the Wicked magazine right now. Yeah, we love his art.
Does he do warm-ups with you too? That's
Yeah, I
what he
believe
tells
so.
me he's
Yeah, I
doing.
think he's been posting some preview stuff, so I think that's what he's been doing. Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
that's,
he's right now in the like setup mode for it, like
mhm.
sketching it all together, pretty much.
Yeah. So I could see that that would be a really good tier for people who are out there listening. That's a good one to get because he's got really nice art. So those are really cool.
Hmm.
How many people are watching
I don't
him?
know at the moment. I don't want to jump over because I'm on my. I think it'll show the other if it'll show the YouTube screen if I jump over to it. But once it's up
Oh,
sharing, I'll check it
Let
out.
me go ahead and check.
Now, what is this original art from Sick Joe about? Is that the one you were? Is that actually a different tier then?
that's done by Joe. Uh, if you donate or support $300, you get a original illustration from Joe, who is drawing Wicked.
Nice. That's really
He's actually
awesome.
the main artist in the book.
Now, when you say an original art piece, is that like an original piece from his collection, or is that like something that where they get to like kind of customize the piece?
Either or, depending on what the person wants. Oh
Nice.
yeah, you get this comic book called Outrider too. Now I won't say Outrider takes place in the Wicked universe, but let's just say it takes place in a separate universe.
Oops.
Actually, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom, and there's previews of Outrider and stuff. Basically, Outrider is this Western S story, and there's this government conspiracy. However, due to the very fact that the world is going through this famine, um, you're watching this woman kill a bunch of random people struggling to eat food, and pretty much it's this government conspiracy about what's going on with food shortages, and there's monsters and stuff.
Wow.
It's
That's cool.
Yeah, that's
You're
awesome.
really
pretty,
prolific on in writing. You really have a lot going.
yeah.
That's awesome. These are some of the other comics then that you were talking about.
Those
Algorithm.
are written by, yeah, other people Joe have worked for.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, really awesome artwork.
Yeah, he's quite talented.
Really dynamic and really unique style of doing things.
That's awesome. Now, you're you have a flexible goal in this campaign.
Uh-huh.
So, what went into the thoughts behind going flexible versus fixed goal for you?
If it's flexible, at least I still have the money to make something.
True.
And if it's fixed, I don't have any of the money. So I can't make it.
So
So
plans to go forward with it regardless of whether you reach the 100% line then?
yeah, like I said, I was just gonna turn it into an
I
anthology-esque
see.
type thing.
Well, yeah, that's cool. Now, uh, once it does get closer to the finish line and kind of past that mark, what do you have in mind for stretch goals and things like that?
The I put stretch goals on the bottom, but I probably am not gonna get them. I said I was gonna go for physical copies if I got 10,000. That's most likely not gonna work out. I'm gonna have that perspective. And beyond that, it's just having issues of the actual story made.
So you're thinking about kind of dialing it back and maybe going primarily digital.
Yeah, I didn't actually have plans for physical copies because I don't buy physical issues of comics books. I
Mm,
only buy the hardcovers and the paperbacks.
I could see that. Yeah, it's kind of easier to read that way in store, you know, with digital. I see a lot of people moving more in that direction.
Well, not only that, it's also good for if you're trying to reach a worldwide audience instead of just a specific region.
Hmm.
Because with Indiegogo, if you're in the US and then you do the international, it'll cost you more as well for the international to ship by yourself.
Right. So it
So
takes.
with digital,
Go
you
ahead.
basically get rid of all of that.
Right. Yeah. You get to focus on making the comic, which ultimately, I mean, that ultimately benefits the reader because they're getting a better quality comic because you're able to put your resources to making it the best it can be.
Hmm.
But I
Yep.
totally get where you're coming from with that too.
What else should I talk about?
Well, we're seeing some concept art here. It looks like some early development art. Is that right?
Yeah.
These
Are
these
these
all by.
are some of the characters that are in like specific poses or dynamic posing? Are they like concept art for characters you might think of making, or just
Oh no, they're all in
more
the
for the
story.
aesthetics?
They're all in the story.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, that's cool. It seems like you've got a really good dynamic base with it. Even seems like a couple different artists contributing, or several different artists. So that is really cool to see as well.
I think I haven't talked about any of the characters. I talked about Sunny, but I never talked about any more of them.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead and let us know some of your side characters that you think are going to be possibly not so influential that it can possibly give away like spoilers, but something along those lines.
well, I can reveal like the characters that exist in this reality due to the very fact that it parallels our reality. If you ever read Marvel Ultimate Comics and DC's Earth One, think of the world before the entire fantasy incursion thing to be something similar to that. It was somewhat realistic, but it wasn't so gritty that something like Zack Snyder's Batman could exist. Or his interpretation of the character.
Right.
But
it would probably be more like a Dark Knight in a sense, but more fantastical instead of you could say gritty.
Yeah. Originally it was kind of gritty, but when the fantasy world collides with it, it kind of gets more gritty and dark because, like I said, 15 million people die. And it's not just like the characters are just saying, well, I'm in this foreign place. I don't know what's going on. Now I'm just going to kill a bunch of people because I can. Majority of the people are dying because of diseases and illnesses that came from the fantasy world. And the CDC and the medical, what I'm trying to say, medical, I don't remember the last part. It's basically the CDC and medical response units having zero way to combat the illnesses that come from the fantasy world into ours. So that's why people are dying so fast in a vast rate. Some of it is just monsters and people, but majority of it is diseases in the start of the story. And we're actually going to find out the Black Plague that spread across England all those years ago was originally from the fantasy world. That's a spoiler, but it's okay.
I mean, hey, those are really good ideas right there. Because I mean, you're also bringing in more of a realistic take on things as well with on how the diseases are spreading from the fantasy world into our world in a sense, because it's more of like you could say what happened with a lot of the Native Americans when the Spanish came over. We gave a lot of them smallpox to the point where some of their villages and ancient like some the archaeological sites that we're seeing over in South America were caused by all of that. It was caused by like most of those people went, you could say, extinct in a sense. A lot of those tribes and like villages and everything just fell off the face of the earth because of because of us giving them smallpox. So
yeah,
having that natural blend is also very relatable. So that'll really help people latch onto the story as well.
I also have reinterpretations of some things that aren't explained in our reality. For example, in Japan in like 1281, the Mongol War happened, and basically this giant wave or this typhoon or this hurricane came out of nowhere, and Japan won an entire war due to the very fact that a wave came out of nowhere and just sunk all the ships. I have an entire story explaining where that wave came from and what caused it. And of course, it came from the fantasy world, but there's an entire story behind it and why things fell out that way.
No, yeah, that's really awesome.
And of course, because I have to, there's going to be a reinterpretation of what World War I and World War II took place and what was it really like.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Heavy subjects too. Very awesome.
Another thing I really wanted to write was spin-off series. I just call it. Let's just say it's called Blackbird at this point. I have the entire story within my head, but man, Marvel is really kicking the bucket, especially the MCU. Black Widow is the most underutilized character. It's Scarlett Johansson. Uh, it's just an amazing setup, and I can't believe no one's seeing it. What would it be like to be a spy in a world full of superheroes and psionics and all this crazy alien technology? Because you got to think about it on a fundamental level. If you're a spy, what are you going to do if you run into someone that can read your mind? If you're a spy and you're a normal human and you got someone standing in front of you firing like fireballs, what are you going to do?
Jeez, yeah.
That's the entire concept of Blackbird. It's a
Huh.
spy thriller that takes place in this world full of magic and all this other crazy shit.
So kind of a fish out of water, or you know, an out of your element kind of thing, almost.
Yeah, it ties into Wicked's main story, but when I think about it a lot more, I wouldn't include it in the main story because it's very thriller heavy, and due to the very fact that I work in cybersecurity and stuff like that, and the main character of Blackbird is kind of like, I don't want to say he's what's this called, Tom Cruise or any of those hardcore guys. I would like to say this main character of that story is kind of a nerd, and he's able to navigate through all this because he's a nerd. But it's not a Tom Cruise like character. It's a Mr. Robot s like character that's in this situation. If you ever seen that show,
Mr. Robot, Mr. Robot.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, with Rami Malek, right? I think his name is.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That one's like about a hacker, right?
yeah. But he has schizophrenia,
Hmm.
and he basically hacked a corporation and wiped away everyone's debt.
Wow. Huh. That's interesting. Yeah. So
I had an idea for a crossover with Shinobi
really,
Sasquatch.
yeah. It sounds like you wanting to do the crossovers you mentioned with the Punchline guys earlier.
Uh-huh. Uh Reveal more random lore in this world. You know, like the Nordic tribes and stuff, like back in the day,
Mhm.
and how Vikings existed and X, Y, and Z. Well, in my reality, human genome went two directions. There's normal humans like us, but for some reason, people of the Nordic tribe have enhanced genes, so giants exist in this world as well. If you ever seen the giant in Game of Thrones, there's people really tall, just like him. People that have
Mhm.
abnormal strength and things like that. But of
Mhm.
course, there's some intervention with the fantasy world that why this exists. I don't. I have a personal gripe with writers that write things because that's what they say and what they can do. Then not give a purpose behind why it exists within the story.
Hmm.
Tom King is
No,
one of
yeah,
those
yeah,
writers.
yeah. You don't want it to seem as if like any of the characters or anything that you put in is as if it's like fluff. You want it there to be a reason why you're using it in a sense, as if like you introduced it in Act One and you're going to be using it by Act Two, in a sense, or
Yeah.
Act Three. At some point, there's a reason why it's there.
Um, I'm a really crazy storyteller, and I like beating the hell out of my audience. But for example, one character is gonna fight one thing, but then of course this character has this pride and this hubris and says, "Well, I got this." And even though I can call this person that's way more quick for this situation, I definitely got this. And of course, they win at the end of the story. But then we're gonna go to the other perspective of that character, and the other character will say, "Well, I beat up this thing, and bada bing, bada boom, I won." Then we're like, "Well, that's good for you, but this is what this thing really was, and this is why you should have called me, and you really lost."
Hmm.
It's the situation of, it looked like you won, but you really didn't because you really didn't know what was going on.
A little bit of hubris going on there.
Yeah.
Hmm. Now, what are some of your inspirations, both as a writer and for this comic in particular?
Video games for sure.
Oh yeah, totally. I could totally see that. Yeah. Coming from your background, that makes a lot of sense.
I have what 700 hours playing games like Warframe,
I
and I played the hell out of Kingdoms of Alamar when that
I'm
came
not
out.
familiar with that one.
I like RPGs. I haven't really played Final Fantasy 13, not 13, 15. But that's something I really want to play though.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that one.
If you really like the old way of playing Final Fantasy, you might not like it. But if you're, I mean, I personally like it because it's a lot more different than every Final Fantasy game that I've ever played. I didn't
Sure.
even touch 13. I did not want to be a part of that. I saw so many things and I was like, I really don't want to play this game. But I mean, from what I've played at 15, it's super trying to be like Skyrim, but with a lot more story involved. So
I
there's
could, yeah, I could
thousands
see
of
that.
things to do, and like you might not have enough time for everything. Like I've spent probably 20 hours on the game, and I'm only on chapter 3.
You know, I kind of look at it almost like it's like a bigger version of the Final Fantasy VII game Crisis Core, because it's got the same kind of action. I feel like, in some ways, I haven't played the game. What do you think, Matt? Is that
I
accurate?
don't. I personally did not play that one, but my roommate played it, and he loved that one. He was
Nice.
like, it's one of the funnest games that I played for Final Fantasy. I'm like, damn, really? I mean, you love Final Fantasy Tactics, and he's like, yeah, exactly.
Interesting. But so you're big on like strategy games, then? Is that right?
Yeah, I do.
Nice. Nice. That's cool, and I like that you kind of got this background in gaming and this influence, and you kind of bring that into your inspirations when you create your comics as well.
Hmm. And you could tell that's where a lot of the heavy fantasy and like uh, I don't want to say story oriented, but world oriented would probably be a better word for a lot of even just your like extras inside of their world. It seems like you took a lot of those influences and why they did a lot of those things and decided to kind of just mesh it together to your own work, or I should say, your own creation. It seems to work very well.
Yeah, it did. It does.
That's awesome. What are some of I wanted to ask you, what are some of the themes and ideas that you want to bring across in Wicked?
The the story's primarily in the start. It's about entropy and decay. Uh, Not something you normally hear about, but it's also about the decline of morality within characters. You have all this insanity going on. Of course, some people, balloons would pop, things would go crazy. For example, no, well, I guess it's a spoiler, but I've just revealed like the bits of it. There's this girl, and she believes something's been missing all her life. And when the fantasy world crashes into reality, well, let me start from the beginning. For all her life, she had these dreams about this island that exists. And for on this island, there's this mystical thing that I'm not going to say what that thing is. And there are these people that do these things. And she believes she's one of them. And she believes just so much. She dedicates her entire life to essentially to seek out this place and find these people. If you've ever seen the Shazam movie, it's kind of like what's the antagonist of that movie called? I always forget his name. I think his name's Stadius. Anyway, it's the entire plot from the antagonist of the Shazam movie, but less psychotic. The character really believes in this place, and she's really trying to get to this place. But when she gets there, in the process of getting there, what is she willing to do to get it? Is she willing to kill people? Is she willing to lie, cheat, steal? Who she's willing to hurt? I'll say the place does exist. And when she get there, I'm not gonna say.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting.
Another
There's
thing,
an epic story you got going on.
another thing that happens is there's this character named Strix. He's pretty much Bullseye from Marvel,
Daredevil.
and he's been a soldier. He went to Afghanistan. He came back. Things didn't work out. So he becomes an assassin for the mafia and the mob and just goes worldwide and pops off like John Wick due to his godlike accuracy. The fantasy world collides with our real world. The military doesn't know what the fuck's going on. People are being drafted to go into battle zones and conflicts to fight the fantasy creatures. Private security is just booming and business is on awry. And this guy's like, well, this is my out right now. I can get away from all this bullshit and not look over my shoulder and not worry about some mob assassin trying to kill me, even though this guy's the best of the best, of course, because he's a primary character. But he views this as his way out. And of course, it's basically him trying to get out from the mafia. Of course, things are probably going to go wrong on the way,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll meet other characters. But another thing that I emphasize on in this story, and I guess is the thing that really pisses people off about the psychokinetic story I wrote, sometimes characters will fail. Sometimes characters will fail epically to epic proportions, and sometimes they'll die just not realizing or accomplishing any of their dreams or aspirations. I can guarantee you that will happen in this story. Like a character might want to be a ballerina. She almost gets there and bam, she gets shot in the head without any explanation. In psychokinesis, from the beginning of the story, I said this character had this brain hemorrhage. And of course, because the main character has this psychokinetic power, of course he could have went into this guy's brain and did what he needed to do to inevitably fix it. But in one portion of the story, basically he has like a brain hemorrhage and he falls over and he dies, and it just sets in motion this chaotic, horrible set of events. And that's basically where everyone got really mad at me for killing off that character at that time, which set off the events of basically a horrible, not horribly written, but a horrible character arc where all the characters are just suffering because of that one important character died. It was the main character.
Jeez,
But
I mean,
the point I'm trying to emphasize on is that sometimes people fail. Like right now, my Indiegogo is not really doing so well. I'm looking at it from the perspective of, well, there's 11 days left, or maybe 10. I'm not really looking at it. Maybe some angel's going to fall from the sky and throw me $2,000. But sometimes you fail. Sometimes people just fail. And maybe in life, you have to fail at things you want or you're good at, so you can have wanted even more.
It's very true. I mean,
that is true.
I guess
Successful
maybe
people
when
are not afraid of losing.
not only that, but I just want to say, they always say that failure is part of success. It's part of being a creator. You can't know where to succeed if you haven't failed before.
I think when I was writing psychokinesis, I was trying to convey that message, but I guess I did it a little bit too roughly.
Well, to be honest, for me, I kind of want to read that story. I really like stories like that in a sense.
Want me to tell you what it was about?
Sure.
You've ever heard of Akira?
Go on.
Have you ever heard of Akira?
Yeah.
The anime. So basically, imagine the main character was Tetsu, the guy that goes crazy and turns into the transhumanized version. But imagine he didn't. So there's this boy that's born, and he has immense psychokinetic abilities. And of course, there's other people with some abilities out there. But due to the very fact that he was antisocial, throughout all his life, all he did was stalk people. Because throughout his entire life, in a Jean Grey-esque kind of way, he could read people's thoughts. He knew what people were thinking from the beginning. He knew the end game of everyone's motivations, etc., etc., etc. Eventually, his life gets thrown out of whack. And since that, there's these individuals that discover he exists, because there's another version of other psychokinetic users out there that also exists. This is also taking place during the Cold War. The story takes place. So there's a lot of ambiguity going around in society. So as the story initially continues on, meet all these other people and all these other beings, and there's friendships built, there's cults established, and these crazy things. And inevitably, the main character becomes so powerful that ultimately he's transforming, or he's becoming something more than human. And due to the very fact that he's becoming something more than human, and he's actually evolving into a parasite or a parasitic. I had a very specific terminology when I wrote it, but basically he's becoming a singular celled organism that is able to connect and disconnect with other people. But the point of the story was initially going into is that the thing that detached this character from humanity is power. He's basically the God maker. He could create homunculus. He could pretty much snap his fingers and bam, there it was. It existed. And it was basically, the story was evolving into him versus humanity, because he began to develop this point of view that says, well, I could fix everything. All I had to do was jump into the president's mind and say, you got to do this, this, and this, and this, and society is fixed. I can jump into everyone's mind and fire all the nuclear missiles into space, and that would be the end of the conflict. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Even though there's this end game like plot happening, that's not even the end of the story. That's where the story was really getting ready to start until I started writing it. But the ultimate ending of the story was the psychokinetic character dies, but in the process of dying, like I was saying earlier in this video, or this live stream, as he's dying, he's able to spread his consciousness throughout humanity, and he's able to live that way. And of course, he's powerful enough to rematerialize as another human being, or just completely take over and override someone's body using his power. But he doesn't. He becomes the narrator of the story. And in a metacontextual way, he actually acknowledges the reader exists. And when the story continued on in this world, because space travel was being developed, because he's able to influence other people, wait a minute. Let me give you an example here. I think it would be better to explain it this way of what was happening. What do you want to be in the future, like 5 years from now?
Oh man.
Okay. And so in a sense, he goes from omnipotent to omnipresent.
Yes, and he can manipulate characters.
Section, yeah, in the same sense, though, he becomes more of what most people would represent God with.
Yes.
He becomes somewhat of an inspiration, or a reason why a lot of people end up doing things, and it becomes, in a sense, he's the reason why people are determinists in that world, because he's the driving function of their determination.
Yeah, he's the muse of people's ideas.
That's a really good concept, and it sounds like, in a sense, he did need to die for something like that to happen, because it would be hard for him to be a multi-celled organism, or even just materialized and being able to do all of that stuff at the same time without, in a sense, going insane, because he would be able to hear everyone's wants and everyone's fears, and it would probably drive some people insane, and that's probably, I don't know, I've never read the story, but in a sense, like, I would probably put it, or I could see it, in a sense, like him just saying, you know what, I can't keep doing it this way. I'm killing myself trying to. I'm going to spread myself out through everyone to be able to do what I need to do. And that would be a good way of self-sacrifice. You're not killing off the character. He's self-sacrificing himself for the good and betterment of the world itself. That's really good. That's what it seems like. It seems like a cause and effect.
Yeah,
sense,
but
instead of this happened and then this happened and this happened.
Yeah, but there was more to the character than that. Very much like Legion from Marvel Comics, he develops also multiple personality disorder. So the situation becomes, there's this personality that says the world needs to function this way, and there's this other personality that says, well, control's for fascists, and I'm going to do everything with my power to initially try to kill you. Because some part acknowledges what he's doing is right, but there's another wholesome part that says, this is wrong. You can't dictate people's lives like that. You can't be the muse and the inspiration of why people do something. For the sense that after this happens in the story, and I got to the point where I stopped writing it, basically there was this serial killer exists. And like I said, the serial killer would have his own text dialogue, and he's all like, oh, I'm going to go kill all these people, or I'm going to kill all these women. But then you also have the narrator. But you also got to remember, the main character is now the narrator of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the narrator's thoughts slowly becoming that character's thoughts. And then it becomes his thought of, is this person going to do this or not? Or is he going to go out there and kill all these people? But you also got to remember, there's another version of himself, because of his multiple personality disorder, that is purposely causing all this chaos within this world, because it believes people need to be in control of their own lives. Of course, the story was going to take the direction of a character would realize that this character was still existing, and they were somehow going to do something to stop it. But that's when I stopped writing the story, because I was tired of all the people talking about it.
I had a question I've been wanting to ask you, which is, how did you first start working with the artist that does the book?
Oh, I met him on DeviantArt.
That's interesting. That's so cool. It's so wild how we can just meet so many different creative people through social media and other websites like that.
Another thing I actually talk about on Wicked is, despite the vast amount of resources and people that we have, even though we live in this digital internet age, of how that could be actually disconnecting than actually uniting us. Because what we're going to discover in the story is that there's basically this massive ass subreddit of people of powers, basically meeting other people with powers, but most of the characters are going to be oblivious to it actually existing until I need them to know it exists.
Right. That's a fun concept. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting close to the end of our hour here as we wrap up. I was wondering, what can you tell us about the future of your comic series, and is there anything you'd like to say to your fans?
I don't know. Oh yeah, Matthew Weldon's one of my fans, and I have 23 other fans.
Nice.
Thanks for your support and allowing me to make this comic.
That's awesome.
I really don't know what to say.
Yeah, I think that's enough. I think hearing your thanks, I think that's just, I mean, that hearing that alone is enough, So,
to be honest, when I started the Indiegogo, I thought I was only going to get $10, to be completely honest.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I got like 7,000 subs on one channel, then 1,000 subs on one other channel. And no, I don't think that some people from my channel actually supported my Indiegogo at all.
Hey, well, you sub 10 days. Just keep pushing it hard. Just keep getting it out there. Try and get on some more streams if you can, and I'm sure you'll get there. And with your flexible goal, that gives you some options to work with. So.
I think one
Real
person
quick,
actually, one person did.
Checked it today. Oh, go on.
No, what were you saying? You can go first.
I was just gonna say, it looks like you're pretty close to halfway right now.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does your campaign have any options to extend, or is this the final run of it all?
No, wait, you can extend?
I believe if I'm not mistaken, I believe there are options you can go in and extend it for an additional amount of days. And if you haven't done that already, you should definitely check it out. And yeah, that might be worth it, because I've seen a lot of other campaigns do that, and it's pretty useful. So yeah, definitely consider doing that. Because we definitely want to see you make that goal. So yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I appreciate you coming on to our first episode of the Indie Spotlight. It's been cool having you and learning about your comic. I really love the world and the characters that you've got going, and it sounds like it's going to be a really exciting story that can continue on forward past just this first initial issue. So I'm really excited about it. And is there anywhere people can follow you online to find out more information about you and follow your adventures?
You can just follow me on Twitter.
Just Twitter mostly?
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and put that into the chat. So Ouroboros Moon on Twitter, Ouroboros_Moon. I'm gonna link it in the chat. Oh, that's funny. We got a wild E-by Canalis in the chat saying, "I Canalis salute you, wicked guys." Thank you, Canalis. Ebi Canales. Ebi is one of our creators at Wicked. He does a book called Decimators. So, thanks for joining us in the chat, Canales. I appreciate that. I wonder how you even
I read
found
a
it. He's not
story
on
called
Twitter
Wicked.
anymore. But yeah, it's as I said, this has been a great meeting of the Wicked minds. You know, it was good from one Wicked to another. We appreciate you coming on, and everyone, go ahead and I'm gonna post it again in the YouTube. But go ahead and check out his Indiegogo and back it. He's got a lot of cool perks and tiers, so please check it out. And yeah, thank you again for joining us. It's been a blast.
All right. Thanks.
Have a good one, guys. Take care.
Okay. Bye.